In tonight's episode, we're heading deep into the heart of Bangkok, where something massive looms above the skyline, abandoned, unfinished, and undeniably cursed. This story takes place in a skyscraper so notorious, locals won't even say its name at night. But you've probably seen it online. They call it the Ghost Tower. It was supposed to be a luxury dream, a glittering high-rise overlooking the Chao Phraya River. But something went wrong. Something no one fully understands. Today, it stands frozen in time, empty stairwells, broken elevators, and 49 floors of silence. Except, silence isn't the right word. Because those who go in say, it's not empty. Cameras glitch, temperatures drop, whispers echo. And the scariest part? Some never come back the same. Our story follows Luka, a half-Thai, half-Swedish architecture student who had returned to Bangkok for the summer. He wasn't here for beaches or nightlife. He came chasing something darker, a building that had haunted him since childhood. The Sathorn Unique Tower. Luka remembered staring at it from the back seat of a taxi when he was little. It looked like a giant ribcage, frozen in mid-scream. His mother always told him to look away. Said it brought bad luck. Said people had died there. Now, years later, with a camera in one hand and an urban exploration blog in the other, Luka was ready to find out the truth. He wanted to capture the forgotten beauty of it, document the decay. He didn't believe in ghosts, he believed in concrete steel and stories twisted by time. But the moment he slipped through the rusted side gate, something felt off. The street behind him went quiet, too quiet for Bangkok. Inside, the air was thick, not dusty, but charged. His flashlight flickered for the first time just 5 minutes in. Graffiti covered the lobby walls, strange symbols, names scratched out. Stairwells spiraled into darkness. Elevators gaped like broken jaws. But Luka pressed on, floor by floor, chasing the view from the top. He wanted a sunset shot, something dramatic. Instead, he got something else. Because by the time he reached the 22nd floor, he noticed the temperature had dropped. His sweat dried, his breath turned visible. And when he looked behind him, the staircase he had just climbed was pitch black. As if it had swallowed the light. Luka tried to shake off the cold. Maybe it was just the wind sneaking through the open floors. Maybe. But the silence was heavy now, like the building had closed its mouth and was listening. He turned a corner and found a narrow hallway, partially finished, with exposed wires dangling from the ceiling like dead vines. At the end was a room with a broken metal sign above it. He stepped in. The floor was littered with shattered tiles and plastic bottles left by other explorers, or so he thought. Because one of the bottles was full, sealed, fresh. Someone had been here recently. He raised his camera to take a photo, and it powered off. Fully charged an hour ago, dead. He checked his phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Just static on the screen, as if something was jamming it. Then he heard it, a low thud, coming from the floor above. Not the kind of thud a rat makes. This was heavier, deliberate, like a boot step. He called out, trying to sound confident. Hello? No answer. He waited. Silence. Then another thud. Closer this time. It didn't feel like he was alone anymore. Luka slowly backed out of the room and looked down the hallway. It was empty. But when he turned to look at the staircase, the one he had just climbed, he noticed something odd. A smear. Faint, red, trailing down the concrete steps, not dripping, wiped. He crouched down to look closer, and that's when he saw something wedged between the cracks. A torn piece of cloth. It looked like part of a jacket. Dark, heavy, and strangely familiar. He had seen that pattern before, in a photo of the tourist who died here. Luka's heart began to race. He stood there frozen, staring at the torn piece of jacket caught between the concrete slabs. His mind flipped through images he had studied online. News clippings, police reports, old forum posts. That jacket belonged to the Swedish tourist who was found hanged on the 43rd floor. No one had ever figured out why he was there, or how long his body had been hanging before it was found. And now a piece of his clothing was right at Luka's feet. He stuffed the cloth into his backpack, suddenly aware of how loud the wind had become. But it wasn't wind. It was whispering, dozens of overlapping voices, just below the range of understanding. He whipped around. Empty hallway. The whispering stopped. He climbed higher, drawn by a mixture of fear and obsession. Floor 25, 26. The air got colder, more oppressive. That's when he saw someone. Just for a moment. A figure on the 31st floor, staring down at him through the central atrium, pale and unmoving. Too still to be alive, Luka shouted up, his voice echoing. The figure stepped back, out of sight. Luka hesitated. Something inside him said, "Turn around." But curiosity pulled harder. He reached the 31st floor and found nothing, just puddles of rainwater and a wall of rebar cutting through the space like rusted bones. Then he noticed something strange carved into the concrete wall, Thai letters scratched deep. He took a photo and sent it to his cousin, who could read the language better than he could. A few seconds later, his phone buzzed with her reply. "Don't go higher. The dead don't like visitors." Luka's stomach dropped. He spun around and saw movement again, not a head below. Someone, or something, was now following him. Slow, careful. He started moving faster. Floor 33, 34. The tower felt like it was alive now, breathing, watching. On the 37th floor, he found an old shrine tucked into a corner behind a half-finished column. It was crude. Melted candles, faded photos, bones, actual bones. Next to the shrine was a bundle of incense, half-burnt. Fresh. Someone had been tending to this, and that's when he heard the laugh. Soft, female, right behind him. He turned so fast he nearly slipped, but again, no one was there. Only a pair of wet footprints leading out of the shrine room. Bare feet, small. He followed them. He didn't want to, but he couldn't stop himself. They led him to a broken metal door near the edge of the building. It creaked open on its own, revealing a pitch-black stairwell. No windows, just darkness. A soft breeze blew from the gap, carrying with it a smell that made Luka gag. Rot? Then he saw them. Candles. Dozens of them, flickering in the pitch dark, lighting a spiral path upward. And next to the first candle, a fresh photo of him, taken from behind, taken today. Luka's breath caught in his throat. The photo? It was unmistakably him. Same clothes, same backpack. His posture mid-step, as if someone had been right behind him with a camera. But he had been alone the entire time, hadn't he? The candles flickered violently, though there was no wind. The air in the stairwell was dense now, thick like syrup, and it pulsed, as if the tower itself had a heartbeat. Luka reached for his phone, fingers trembling, but the screen refused to turn on. Then came the sound. Not footsteps this time. Chanting. Low, rhythmic, echoing up from the darkness below. It didn't sound holy. It sounded like a warning, a curse, like something ancient and angry had just woken up. Luka backed away, but as he turned, he found the hallway behind him had changed. The graffiti was gone, the floors were clean, and the walls, they were no longer unfinished concrete. They were smooth, polished, almost new. He was no longer in a ruin. He was in the tower as it once was, pristine, alive. But the lights were flickering. Red emergency bulbs hummed from above, and shadows moved at the end of the hallway, sliding, jerking, not walking. He stumbled backward into the stairwell and slammed the metal door shut. Silence. Then, a breath, inches from his ear. He spun around, no one there. But now, every candle was out, except the one at the very top of the stairs. He didn't want to go up. Every cell in his body screamed, "Don't." But his legs moved anyway. As he climbed, the stairwell walls began to change again, covered in handprints, smears, scratches, names. And one name, carved deeper than the rest, was his own. When Luka reached the top of the stairwell, the final candle flickered beside a rusted metal gate, chained shut but unlocked. He pushed it open and stepped onto the 43rd floor. The place where the tourist died. The air was colder than anywhere else in the tower, and the silence was absolute. At the center of the floor stood something unexpected. A circle of ash, faint but deliberate. Inside it, half-burned incense sticks, old photographs, and tiny bones. Bird bones, maybe. He recognized one of the photos. It was the same man from the jacket, the tourist. Then came a voice. Soft, male, behind him. You shouldn't be here. Luka turned and saw an old man in construction gear, face pale, eyes sunken. He looked decades out of place. The man didn't move, just stared. They don't like it when people come to the top, he said, especially the ones who don't believe. Luka asked who they were, but the man only pointed to the walls. They were now covered in crude symbols and names, all names of people who had died in the tower. Workers, trespassers, explorers, and among them, the Swedish tourist. His name had been crossed out. Luka's wasn't crossed out. Not yet. Luka didn't wait for answers. He turned and bolted down the stairs, skipping 2 at a time, heart thundering against his ribs. Every landing felt longer, like the floors were stretching. The air warped, the lights dimmed. Somewhere below, the chanting had started again, louder now, desperate. He passed the shrine. The candles were lit again. He didn't stop. Floor 30, floor 20. His legs burned, but he kept running. The building groaned, as if it were alive, or waking up. By the time he reached the lobby, the sun was rising. Pale light poured through the broken windows, warm and unreal. It felt like stepping out of a dream. He didn't look back, just walked into the street and kept walking. He never told anyone what happened inside. Not the full story, not the voices, not the symbols. He deleted the photos, all but one. The one of him taken from behind. But when he opened it again, weeks later, he noticed something he hadn't before. In the corner of the image, a hand, pale, blurred, reaching toward his shoulder. And where his shadow should have been, there were 2. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked this video and want to listen to more true horror stories from Asia, feel free to subscribe and put on your notifications. I upload at least 3 times a week. Wish you all the best.